Sorry, I'm a bit challenged today. I usually walk better than I'm doing today, but Ian did ask me to break a leg, and because Ian is Ian, I had to do that. Otherwise, he wasn't going to pay me for standing up here tonight, which, by the way, he is not going to do. I guess I know Ian longer than the other two speakers that stood up here tonight. And he's one of those guys that we're asked to come here, to come and do a quick job and then go back home. And Ian didn't. He met a few people, and Ian can tell you today that some of his friends are white. Like I can confidently say that some of my friends are black. And when he said to me he wants to write a book, as only Ian can, he said, after BCX, I'm going to write a book. And I said, sure, when? He said, I've started. And then he said, and I'd like you to do a chapter for me. And I tried to tell Ian, I'm quite a busy guy. And he said to me, just tell me what the chapter is going to be about. And before I knew it, I was writing a chapter for Ian. And then he said to me, and the launch is going to happen very soon. And before I knew it, there was a launch. And he said, and I would like to speak you to speak at the launch. And I said, yeah, now you want to prove to people that some of your friends are white. Anyway, thank you for that introduction. And Ian, thank you for making me a part of your journey. I must admit, I've never seen a telescope, so I had to Google one, and I saw what it looks like. And so he asked me, what would you like to talk about? And I thought I'd like to talk about Black Jerusalem. And the reason I want to talk about Black Jerusalem is we formed an agency in 1991. 5 black guys, 1991. That is the year before 1990, and that is before the 80s, which means it was during the apartheid era. You are black, you form an ad agency in South Africa. We all had proper jobs. I had a really, really good job at Ogilvy. I earned 12,000 Rand in 1989, 1990. And I walked away from that thing to go and form an ad agency because some 5 black guys thought we should form an ad agency. And I thought I'd give it a shot. I was very young. I just turned 30, and I thought I can do this thing. And if it doesn't go well, I can always go find a job. And we then formed this agency. And it became a bit of an albatross because it was so successful that whenever you bumped into people, especially fellow black people, they said, you're doing such a good job. You guys cannot afford to fail. And it was wonderful on the one hand. On the other hand, it was very, very stressful. But we formed an agency. I thought it was going to be a small spaza shop. And when it got into the late 90s and it got into the 2000s, it had turned into something else, and it was a hell of a success story. But of course, it all starts somewhere. And our first client was National Sorghum Breweries. Makes sense. Sorghum breweries, sorghum beer, black people. Sort of made sense. But we knew somebody, and we found our first client. And the guy at the top was a guy called Samu Sikiri. May his soul rest in peace. And of course, he gave us the guy below. And the guy below was a guy called Ian Bromley. Very affable fellow, charming, a bit on the plumpy side. And he was a very streetwise white man. And he asked too many questions. Now, what had happened is we formed an agency. And we told the world that we'd formed an agency. And we told the world that we had clients lined up. Everybody who's been in advertising will tell you that when you start a new agency, you have clients lined up. You don't say, we've got clients. You have them lined up. But we already had that one client. But it takes a long time before you get paid. And so we went and met with Ian and met with Ian and met with Ian. And Ian and I formed, I must get my Ian's right. Ian Bromley and I, not Ian Russell, formed a very, very strong partnership. and I was looking after the business. But, you know, when you have a white man who is streetwise, you need to also show them that you're also very streetwise. And I grew up in Soweto. He wasn't going to outsmart us. But he liked what we were doing. And so after we'd done a few presentations to him, it was time for him to pay us. And he said to me, I like what you guys have been doing. I'm now ready for the final product. And I said, thank you, Ian. And it's time for you to pay us. Pay us our first 50%. And he said, perfect. Let's have our next meeting next week. For sure. I was with my partner, Dimape, a very, very good strategist. And I said, for sure, Ian. And he said, I'd like to have our next meeting at your offices. And I said, for sure. Oh, yeah. And we walked out of there. I'd given him the invoice for the first 50%. And Dimape and I got into my car, which was a very nice, used to be nice GTI, but it was getting a bit tired. You know, we'd left Ogilvy for quite a while now. And Dimape says to me in the car, so happy. You said to Ian, we're going to meet at our offices, and you agreed. And I said, yeah. And he said, where are these offices? And I said to Dimape, I can't think that far right now. You know, just, I know we're meeting him at our offices. I just can't think that far. He said to me, okay, that's fine. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to prepare everything that I have to do, my bit. And you let me know on the day where we're going to go. And I said to him, Dimape, like I said to you, I can't think that far right now. I cannot tell you what address I'm going to give to the boot of my car for that day. But trust me, we'll find something. Anyway, and of course the date was getting closer and closer. And I was getting more stressed and more stressed. And then I remembered I had a bit of a nice kind of relationship with his PA, with Ian Bromley's PA. So I called her. I think she liked me a little bit. And I said to her, listen, I've got this problem, and I told her the truth. And I said, you control his diary. This is what's going to happen. On the day of the meeting, we have a workshop at the Rosebank Hotel. We've got a workshop there. So you tell your boss that we're meeting him at 12 o'clock after our workshop at the Rosebank Hotel. Makes sense. Now I've told her the truth, and she said, don't you worry. I'll just put it in the diary, and when the time comes, I'll say they've got a workshop, and he will come to Rosebank. And of course, the day arrived, and I told Dimape and Peter Vundla, who was our chairman, and they rocked up. But I prepared everything. I went to reception. You know those plaques that they put at reception, those boards when you arrive? HerdBuoys, room 3, executive X, whatever. It was right there. The props were perfect. And we then had our meeting in the morning. And Dimape says to me, so happy, we haven't been paid for 5 months, and you managed to book the Rosebank Hotel. How are you going to pay them? I said, I can't think that far. Dimape, I cannot think that far. You told me you're going to be ready with your stack. I want the presentation from you today. And the client's coming, we're all sorted. And Ian arrived. And we presented to him. And he said to me, guys, can I buy lunch for you? I'll pay. And I said, for sure. And he bought everything. And then he put his hand in his shirt pocket, and he pulled out a check. Remember, it's the 1991, you know, still had a check. And he said, instead of the 50% you asked me for, I'm paying you 100%. I must tell you, I had never seen 300,000 rand up until then. And I saw that check for 300,000. He said, but there is a major proviso. And I said, yeah, what's the proviso, Ian? He said, can you please use some of it to get some offices? Now, why did I tell you this story? I'm telling you this story because we believed in our abilities. We knew we wanted to start an ad agency. We'd been speaking about it for over a year, and I was getting a little tired. We had the skill, we had the guts, and we knew the craft. At some point, we had to go out and do it. We were scared. Of course, everybody's scared. But we went out and did it. Because what tends to happen is people tend to sit in the comfort of their jobs, and they have got something to offer, and they worry that the address is the boot of their car. People don't care what your address is. If you've got the talent, that's what they're buying from you. Go out there and do it. That's the first part of my telescope, the one I Googled. But what tends to happen with those kind of, when you make that kind of decision, we had a creative relationship with Ian. And what do you do in a creative relationship? You take your position. You run your business on your own terms. Because at the end of the day, it's your neck that's on the block, and you're the one that took the decision. You run the business on your own terms. You have the relationship with the client, but you try and determine and define the relationship and not the other way around. The business is yours. And of course, you will earn your consideration if you are compassionate and know when to detach. You can listen to what the client has to say and what their recommendations are, but you need to be able to detach at some point and say, it is my business. You're running yours. I have tried to understand your consumer while you're understanding your business. But at some point, I have to detach and tell you that it is my business. This is why ad agencies today are the least paid, the most abused people who know so much about their craft, but are told what to do by clients, and then they tell them how much they're going to pay them. And you will earn respect if you stay clean, you do the right thing. I want to repeat that. You will earn respect if you stay clean and do the right thing. It's a business, and we have to be ethical about it and do the right thing. So, my next story is how to be resilient in the face of adversity. I will read the 3 points, which are easy. Your business demands your own decisions no matter what. You make your own decisions. Grit or resilience needs balls, no matter what. And balls are balls or big girl panties. Because when you've got balls, people know that this guy's got balls and he believes in what. You tell the truth. And of course you tell Ian the white lie. But you know, you don't really lie about it. He knows that these guys are going through something, and he gets to understand it, and he walks the path with you. And I know this whole thing about balls, so does a guy called, we'll call him Ben for the purposes of this conversation. So, in 2001, remember we formed this agency in 1991. In 2001, things had changed. We were no longer in a house in Soweto. We were now in proper Sandton. There were people running around, I couldn't tell how many. In their hundreds, we had our own offices. We could go to an event and park some proper cars out there. Things had turned. The agency had really, really good clients. We had Caltex, we had Rackets, we had Gillette, we had Unilever, we had SA Breweries, we had Vodacom, we had Telkom, we had SAA, we had Eskom. And Eskom was doing the electrification at that time, if you remember. No, I mean this in a good way. But we had built this agency and we're sitting in the top 5. Things were really, really happening for us. But we were running a proper business. And then one big carbonated soft drinks company walked in. Not really walked in, we were involved in an international pitch. And we won it through a huge effort from ourselves in South Africa. And now we have to tool up, as agencies do. You've got to get people in. So I looked around, and there was a young lady called Nmuthuma who worked at Leo Burnett at the time. And I went and I poached her. And I employed her. Then I went and I told the client that we had found somebody that I think is really good to handle their business. And the client said, we would like to meet her, as clients do. And I said, of course, we can do that. But please, there's one small proviso. remember Ian, you are meeting and greeting her. You are not vetting her. And they said, sure. Of course, they came back and they said to me, we've met her. We do not think that she's going to be good for our business. So I said, oh, well, you see, I told you, you're supposed to meet and greet her, and I hope they did greet her, but not vet her. And they said, yeah, but still, we don't feel that she's going to be good for our business. And I said, I'm sorry. She hasn't worked on your business at all. You cannot make that judgment. So I am keeping her, and she is going to work on your business. This client then wrote to me. You know those letters that got delivered by the guy on the motorbike by hand? They had a stamp, and it arrived, and she told me what she thought of me. And she said she insisted on me writing back to her. Now, if you really want to find out just how good I am at being angry, ask me to write something, because I can really, really write. So I wrote back to her, and I told her exactly what I would have preferred to tell her in person, that I had employed Anne on the basis that I believed in Anne, and Anne had not worked on her business. Therefore, she could not charge Anne. Then she thought, well, this guy is really obstinate. She then wrote an email. Remember, we were part of the McCann group, and we were part of then that thing, you know, that thing you always see in big corporates, EMEA, Europe, Middle Eastern Africa. We were part of that, which was run by the guy we will call Ben. And so she wrote this email and copied the world. And the world includes Atlanta. And if you don't know where God lives, he lives in Atlanta. And so I read this email. And she was really complaining. And I thought, but this is not fair. And then, of course, the guy who runs EMEA then wrote back to me to say, listen, this is, and copied the world, including the men in Atlanta. God. And basically told me just how important this client was and how I needed to make sure that the client's happy and therefore needed to do the right thing. Basically, get rid of Anne. Without putting it in so many words. Then I pressed reply to all. And I said, dear Ben, 2 words. Send. In no time, my phone was ringing. The world had noticed that some guy sitting at the end of the world in Africa somewhere had just told somebody who is God in the world of branding that they don't really take too kindly to being told how to run their business. And the guy who had done the deal with us, and remember, McCann Erickson didn't own us. We were the majority. They phoned me and said, happy, and I said, listen, you don't understand. We didn't form HerdBuoys to be told how to run HerdBuoys. We formed HerdBuoys because we wanted to bring a change to the ad industry. We've done that. It's our business. We're going to run it on our terms. So, if they don't like it, it's okay. But we're not going to back down. To cut a long story short, we then had a Bamba Nani, you know that thing? And we all resolved the matter, and Anne was allowed to work on the business. And Anne did very well. So well that within 6 months, they asked Anne to come to the other side, to come and work for them. Because Anne was good. But the reason Anne was able to work on that business is because we were not prepared to be told how to run our business. Because balls can build your business even if it's incidentally crucial. And if you do not have balls, your business can crash because you cannot stand on your 2 feet and run your own business and tell somebody else that it's okay. If you don't like me, it's fine. Take your business away. I thought you employed me for my skills, for my craft, and not for other things. And you must understand, it was very difficult for us, for starters, to be in the ad game. Even more difficult because we were black. Now, the good thing that came out of all of that is that ad agencies started finding black people and stealing some of our own. And I used to really have some good words, choice words, 2 words for them. But it changed the industry, and the industry did well in the process. Then, of course, the relationship improved. It really did. And we became a vital cog in the creative, in terms of the creative product that came out of our ad agency going into the world for this particular brand. Then we got a brief that we sat with for weeks trying to work out, when the client said, here's the brief, but the brand must be incidentally crucial to the action. Incidentally crucial. So, you know, clients, I want my brand in the ad, but it must be incidentally crucial. In other words, don't really show the brand, but show the brand. And we battled with it for a while. And we ended up making this ad.
I can't make it if you leave me. I'm sorry, Suzanne, believe me, I was wrong. And I knew I was all alone. Forgive me, I still love you more than ever. I'm sorry, Suzanne, forever hurting you. You know I never wanted to. I'm truly sorry, Suzanne.
As you can see, the brand was incidentally crucial to the action, and that part is where he puts the serviette and oh, actually it does the Me Too bit. And of course, in 2006 we had sold HerdBuoys and we all moved on. And about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe less, this ad was made.
Never did believe in what I couldn't see. Darling, I was made for you.
Amazing, isn't it? We made that one, I was in 2001, they made this one about 4 years ago. But you can see the similarities, and I mean, I'm not for once suggesting that they copied the ad, but you can see, no, I'm not. But what you can see is how they've interpreted the same thing. It means the same brief came back many years later, because it's actually quite a very good way of involving the brand, because, I mean, we all know, had she wiped his lips off that thing, it was the end. And I think they did a better version of that ad. But I guess I told you that story because it's got a happy ending, so to speak. But the challenge was, it was the big red. You know, you go into a meeting, you go into a pitch, and you say, these are our clients, and you put Coca-Cola up. People start listening to you because it's a big brand. It's the Ferrari story. But we were faced with a challenge. What were we supposed to do? We did the right thing, because ultimately it all resolved itself. and everybody was a winner. So I told you that story again because that's my other end of the telescope, that you need to look at things differently. We took a big, big step forming that agency. But today, I get on an airplane. I fly everywhere in the world. And when that airplane lands and I look down and I see the SAA flag, I'm very proud because we did that. And it's not going to change in a long time. But it's the one thing that you look back and you say, we did that as HerdBuoys. And why? Because we were determined. We're not just forming some spaza shop. We formed an agency that shook the country. And it became very, very successful. That is why, when I wrote my book, I called it Black Jerusalem, because it was exactly that. We were supposed to be the Moses suddenly. We were just forming a business. But people bump into you and they say, please, 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 we're proud of you. Do not, do not, do not. And I guess we heeded the call. And I'm saying to you tonight, if you find yourself in that position, it's not going to hurt you. It's your business. The decision is yours. At least be the one that regrets, and not regret because you actually allowed somebody to interfere with your business. Thank you for listening.